I played and reviewed 152 games on this channel this year, and a lot of them were really freaking awesome. Hey guys, I'm RNG Gamer. I play all my games randomly, and these are the 10 best games I played all year. At number 10, we have a classic game on a console that gets a lot of hate. It's probably the best game on that system. I had a great time with it, and it's Tempest 2000. This game is a really simple idea. It took the idea of Tempest, which is this vector-based game. It's kind of a shooter where you're shooting down a tunnel and you can rotate around the perimeter of the level, but it adds in power-ups. So different enemies will drop power-ups that you use to upgrade your ship in each individual level, and you end up becoming super overpowered, and it's a lot of fun to just blast the crap out of everything that comes your way. It turns it almost like into a puzzle game where you have to be more on your toes about seeing where the power-ups are coming from and knowing how to get them to be able to succeed in the stage. Because they overwhelm you with so many different enemies, if you don't know when and how to grab the power-ups, the chances of you succeeding are really low. And I loved that about this game. I normally hate freaking trial and error sort of games. This game is so good and so much fun, it got me to overlook my hate of that game mechanic and truly grow to love this game. And I put a lot of time into it. Probably, like I said, probably the best game on the system. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a lot of fun. At number 9, we have a game that Metal Jesus absolutely adores, and he talks about it so much that I had to go out of my way to get it. I think it's the best snowboarding game I've ever played, and I really liked this game, and it's SSX Tricky. This is like an arcadey style snowboarding game. You pick a character who you can level up over time and gain new abilities and new boards and unlock new tricks, and they take really interesting gameplay mechanics and they drop you on these absolutely insane courses that have pipes to grind on and big ramps to go off of and glass to smash through and slides and secret paths and freaking fans that blow you up into the air, all kinds of stuff. It's really like a playground more than it is a snowboarding course. And racing the enemies is really fun. There's this weird mechanic where if you get knocked down or one of the enemies gets knocked down, instead of really having rubber banding, it just kind of puts you back where the action's at. So you're always doing something. It's almost impossible to get so far out ahead of the enemies that they can't catch up. And if you wreck, it's almost impossible for them to get so far ahead of you that you can't catch up. So instead of like spending all your time trying to like hurry ahead or spending all your time to stay out in front, it's about engaging with the other opponents. There's also a mode where you just do tricks and rack up a lot of points. And I liked that too, although I didn't like it as much as the racing section of the game. It's still a lot of fun, and I put a lot of time into SSX Tricky. I basically played straight through it over the course of a couple weeks, and I loved that game. And I can't wait to play the other games in the series. The 8th best game I played all year made it into my last video, which was the top 10 worst games I played all year. I'm counting the whole package of this as a game, because it was a singular experience. It's the Atari 50th anniversary celebration. And I said in my last video that this game was full of terrible games. In fact, 6 out of the top 10 worst games I played all year came off this compilation. But the overall experience of it was one of the best ones I had all year. They took all these games from Atari's history and they packaged them into a bundle with all of this extra information, and you experience it like you're going through a timeline. So you start off with Atari's early days and move through console to console to console as they come out, and it's full of tons of developer interviews, advertisements, internal memos, all the really cool stuff you need to make a documentary, which is what this game is. It's like an interactive documentary that you get to interact with, as an interactive documentary is something you would interact with, of course, along the way. And I thought it was a lot of fun. It wasn't perfect. It did trail off towards the end when we got around to like the Atari 7800 and the Atari Jaguar days, because there just wasn't that much information other than the games, like internal memos and advertising documents and interviews and stuff. That stuff sort of petered out by the end of the game. But I had a great time with it. Normally I would treat every game on this as a separate game in my backlog that I would play randomly, but because this was made to be played as one singular experience, because you're reliving the history of Atari, I treated it like one game. So this one game encompassed 104 of the games I reviewed this year, because I reviewed every single game on it. And I had a great time doing it, even though I think the games averaged out to about a 5 out of 10. About half of them were just trash, another half are really good. So it's a mixed bag in terms of the games. But the experience was one of the best I had all year. This is a game that I think everyone should play to know what it was like to grow up playing all those games. It feels like it did as I was growing up, which is why I made it on this list. Now, I don't know how many subscribers I have as this video is coming out. Would you believe earlier in this year, I did a 500 subscriber special, and I let you guys pick the game I played. I gave you a list of a bunch of rare and expensive games I owned that I had never played before, and this is the one you guys picked. It's a classic, it's a holy grail, everybody loves it, including me, and it's Earthbound. I did a one-off review of this game on this channel. It's the only time I've ever done that on this channel where I just reviewed like a single game, and I learned that I am bad at writing scripts for me to read. All of this stuff that I do, you see me do, it's all off the cuff. I have no notes. I'm just talking off the top of my head, and that's what works best for me. If I try to like write out a script, it feels stilted and weird. And this review that I did of this game definitely feels that way. And I feel like this game deserved better because Earthbound is an incredible game. In terms of the gameplay, it's just like an RPG. There's nothing special about it. You attack and you use magic attacks, which they call Psi in this. And you get random encounters and stuff as you, not really random, you see the enemies on the map. But the character of this game and the setting and the set pieces and all the weird stuff that happens, including enemies and events, are unlike anything I've ever seen in any game. It's like a bizarre fever dream the whole way through. It's extremely memorable. It does have some weird difficulty spikes at places, and I did get stuck quite a few times, but there's like 10 or 11 experiences I had in this game, like go into the world where you're really tiny, like the giant prehistoric world, or where you turn into robots and stuff, that are really memorable and they stand out. I played games like a month ago, I can't remember anything about them because they just weren't memorable, whereas I played Earthbound like, you know, almost an entire year ago, at the beginning of this year maybe? Definitely maybe at the beginning of this year, and I remember the game vividly. And I think that's the reason Earthbound has been so popular all these decades. Once you play it, it kind of like pulls this child whimsy out of you that makes you feel like you're a kid again, and you get to do all the awesome things you wanted to do as a kid. And it just sticks with you. I thought Earthbound was a miraculously good game. I loved it, but I did find the gameplay got a little boring. And that's the reason it's not at the top of this list. If it had some more in-depth gameplay, it could have been one of my favorite games of all time. But it's definitely one of my favorite games I played this year, and I loved it. If you have not played Earthbound, don't let all the hype put you off of it. People love this game for a reason. It's well deserved. If you're liking the content thus far and you want to see more of me, consider subscribing to the channel. Click that bell notification so you know when the new videos come out. They come out every Saturday. Give me a like. That's the best way to help me with the YouTube algorithm. And leave a comment. I'll answer it, I promise. At number 6, we have one of the strangest freaking games I've ever played in my life. It's done by Suda51. I don't even know what kind of game to call it. It's an on-rails adventure rail shooter, maybe? I don't know, dude. Whatever the crap. It's Killer 7. You play as one character in this, but he has split personalities, and those split personalities form together to make a hit squad called the Killer 7. And you can switch between the different characters as you're playing the game, and they all have their different strengths and weaknesses and different abilities that allow you to solve these sort of almost Resident Evil style puzzles. As for the gameplay, it's kind of weird. It's on a rail system. You kind of just point the direction you want to go by selecting it on the screen and then hold down the button and you just auto run. And as you're running along, you'll hear like this maniacal laughter in which you switch to this first person mode and scan the area to make the enemies reveal themselves, and then you take them out, you shoot them. The combat kind of reminds me of Fatal Frame, where you like point the camera and shoot, except in this you have the additional challenge of having to reveal where the enemies are. It's challenging, and it adds a tenseness of the enemies like getting too close without you seeing them. And not only that, you have to shoot at their weak points to be able to take them out efficiently. So it's this like slow plotting aiming as the enemies are setting in on you, and I loved that. And I loved the puzzle solving in this game. It's weird as hell the whole game all the way through, and very strange, and the characters are bizarre, and the dialogue's insane, and much like Earthbound, it feels kind of like a fever dream. But I really liked that, and this is considered to be one of the early examples of games as an art form. I don't know what kind of art this game's trying to convey, other than just like general bizarreness, but it works. And there's a reason that this is considered to be like Suda51's come out game and probably his most loved one of all time. It's a really great game. It has a few flaws. It's not perfect, but it's definitely good enough to make it onto this list. At number 5, we have another classic game. At one point, this was the most expensive game ever made. It basically bankrupted an entire company. But they decided to remaster it and put it out on the PS4, and I played the first one finally after all these years. And it's the first Shinmu. So the story of Shinmu is not really what it's all about. It's a basic story. The main character's father got the crap beat out of him by some dude, and they ended up killing him because they're looking for some mystical plates or some nonsense. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, dude. What matters is the main character then has to investigate this small Japanese village during the 1980s to figure out who the murderer was and then track him down. And the gameplay just consists of like daily life. It's like a life simulator. You walk around, you go to the arcade, you play games, you buy gacha prizes, you talk to people. You drive a forklift and have a job. You have to be home before 10 o'clock at night or you get in trouble. You have an allowance, that sort of stuff. The game world, for as old as this game is, really feels alive. All the characters in the town, you get to know them and their behaviors, and you see them on the street as they're walking around and you recognize them and you want to like wave to them. It felt like I was in Japan in the 1980s, which must have been the most freaking awesome place to be in the 1980s. I've been to Japan and I love it there, but I didn't get to experience it in the 80s, and this is really my only chance to kind of do that. The story ends on a cliffhanger. There is a sequel. It's on that disc, and I can't wait to play it. But like, I felt like I was in the world of Shinmu. And there weren't very many games I've played like that this year, or ever. Yeah, it's an old game, and it's full of stuff to do, but it feels like it's not that much by today's standards. If you've played Assassin's Creed or Far Cry or something like that, or Elden Ring with this huge open sprawling world where there's a million things to do. But when this game first came out, it felt like there were infinite things to do. You spend a lot of time sitting around not doing anything in this game, but that's the kind of game it is. It's a stop and smell the roses kind of game, which is not the kind of game I like, man. I want to work through these freaking games and knock them out because I've got like 1,000 games in my backlog, or almost 2,000 games in my backlog. But this game forced me to sit down and relax and just soak it all in, which is exactly what I needed to do at that time in my life. So Shinmu made a big impact on me. And it says a lot about a game that's over freaking 20-something years old, that it can still touch someone to this day. And that's one of the reasons it's a classic even now. At number 4, we have a game that's kind of similar to Shinmu, but it's a modern game. It takes that idea of being in an interesting world and being absorbed into that world, but it mixes it with a roguelite. And that game is Road 96. So the premise of Road 96 is that it takes place in the year 1996, and you live in this fictional country that is very corrupt, and teenagers are going missing day by day. So your goal is to escape the country and cross the border into the neighboring country so you can be safe and live a life free of corruption and oppression and all the other things that keep teenagers down and everybody else. As you start off, you're a random character and they put you in a random location and you have a certain distance from the border. And you make decisions as you go along, and every time you play, you meet the same cast of characters, but you as the gamer uncover more and more and more of the story around these characters and what's really going on in this world. And as you do that, you gain certain abilities, like the ability to pick locks or hack or whatever, and those abilities carry on to your next characters on your next attempt. And each character you're trying to cross the border, sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't, but it's always an interesting experience. And getting to meet these other characters in the game is really rewarding. And every time I made it to that last area and tried to cross over the border, I could feel the intensity of the game, and I wanted this fictional character, just this one-off randomized character I was playing to make it. I was really invested in this world and the story and the characters, and I had a great time with it. And it had some very memorable set pieces that I really loved that are like kind of hard baked into the experience that you will experience at some point. Road 96 was magnificent, and I knocked it out in about 2 weeks. It didn't take that long, so it's not that long. It's not a Binding of Isaac or a Slay the Spire kind of roguelike where you've got to play 1,000,000 hours to unlock everything. Just 10 or 12 sessions and you'll make your way through this game. But I loved every minute with it. I never got tired of it. And it deserves to be one of the best games I played this year. At number 3, we have a for real bona fide classic from a series I've never played any of the games before. It was a gold star game. I had to beat 10 games to earn a gold star to play this, and I spent that gold star just so I could stream this game. Some of you people watching right now may have come to this channel from that stream, and the game is Silent Hill. 15 minutes into this game, I knew I had totally screwed up because I had gone so long without ever playing this series. I love the Resident Evil games. It's one of my favorite series, maybe my favorite series of all time. I'm not sure. Come back to me later and I'll get with you about that. But this had everything I was looking for in a game. The fact that this game came out on the PS1 blows my mind. It looks incredible, it sounds incredible. Some of the technical achievements that Konami pulled out on this with like surround sound and the lens flare and other mechanics, just the environments and all the little knickknacks and nuance that you experience everywhere else blew my mind. I would not expect to see that in a lot of AAA games now, let alone a game that came out in what, 1998? Had an interesting story, extremely interesting characters, really fun gameplay, some of the hardest and best puzzles I've ever seen in any game, and it was the real package. I loved it, and as I was playing it, I knew it was going to be one of the best games of the year. I thought it might have been the best game, but there are a couple little flaws in it. One, the end of the game gets a little too maze-like, and it was really hard to navigate around. I had to get help from the chat, but I can let that slide. The other one is, the outdoor enemies in Silent Hill infinitely respawn, so I didn't get to have that experience I wanted from Shinmu and Road 96 where I got to just absorb the town. I felt like I was rushed everywhere I went, and I know that's what they were going for, but I just wish they had catered to what I wanted more. I wanted to just be able to walk around Silent Hill at my leisure, learn where everything was, really let the town sink in and feel like I'd been there. That was the only thing that kept it out of maybe the top spot this year. But Silent Hill is a fantastic game. I had a great time with it, loved it, and that's why it's the 3rd best game I played all year. The 2nd best game I played all year is another survival horror game. And I will come out and say it, that the first half of this game is by far the best experience I had playing any game all year. If the game had maintained that quality all the way through, it not only would have been the #1 game of the year, it probably would have been one of my favorite games of all time. First half of this game, 10 out of 10. The second half didn't quite live up to that, but it's Resident Evil Village. This is the direct sequel to Resident Evil 7, which I liked fairly well, but it's a little too gross for me. This game pretty much gets rid of the grossness and sets you in like a pseudo-historic fake European medieval town, kind of, that's in Spain or Italy, but everyone has California accents, I don't know. But it's a lot of fun. Exploring the village and Lady Dimitrescu's castle, and then the weird escape room section after that. Best time I had all year playing a game. Unbelievably good. But after that, when you're in like the slug maze mines and out in the magnetic factory, it kind of lost me a little bit. It got a little too actiony and it was a little too, I don't know, uninspired for lack of a better term. But I loved this game. I loved the mechanics of it. I loved the setting. I loved the way it looked. It was by far the best looking game I played all year. I think it might have been the best looking game I've ever played in my life up to this part. But I loved the atmosphere at the beginning of this game, and I loved the characters, I loved the story, I loved the puzzles, and I really enjoyed being in the world at the beginning of that game. I found all the items, I got like 100% map completion, and I wanted to go back into this game immediately after I played it. But I decided to play the DLC for it right after that. That kind of turned me off to it a little bit. I didn't like the DLC that much. But this is one of those games I wanted to go back through and get the Platinum Trophy. And I just didn't have time to do it. And after playing the DLC, I just didn't have the willpower to do it. But it was still a fantastic experience, and it definitely was the second best overall game I played all year. Can't recommend it highly enough. And this is a little awkward, but it's just how it worked out. The best game I've played all year. Also another survival horror game. 3 in a row. I like survival horror, but it's not my favorite genre. It just happened to be this way. It's the remake of Resident Evil 4. And this is the one and only game I've played this year that came out in 2023. So there you go, my top games of 2023 contained one game from 2023. That's what happens when you play everything randomly. Now, I've never played the original Resident Evil 4. I have like 4 copies of it in my backlog, and this one just happened to get picked first. So I didn't really go into this game with any expectations other than I was expecting it to be great. And from what I heard on the internet, I was expecting to be let down. I have to say that did not happen. I don't know what it feels like to play the original Resident Evil 4, but I loved this, and I loved the knife mechanic. This game has an interesting mechanic with the knife. It's really the most powerful weapon in the game. It can block, break stuff open for you. You can use it to stealth kill enemies, but it has a durability meter. When you use it, super overpowered, it'll one-shot enemies, but you can only use it so many times till you repair it. And I loved that balancing act. This game, unlike Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil Village, had no bad areas. When you start off in the village, it's really fun and scary. When you get to the castle, it's freaking incredible. Great puzzles, fun traversal, fun combat encounters. You move into the next area, I won't spoil it, but it's fun too. It's a really strong experience all the way through, even though no one section was as good as Lady Dimitrescu's castle from Resident Evil Village. It was just a really good experience. And I loved it, and as soon as I was done, I booted it back up and played through it again. Loved this. I wish I had more time to play it, but there's never enough time, and I've got all these other games to get through. Maybe I'll go back and revisit it one day. I'd like to do that. But it was, without a doubt, the best game I played all year. It was the only game this year that I gave a 10 out of 10 to. The only one. It was well deserved. I think it's a masterpiece. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's not perfect. No game ever is. But it's the closest I've seen in a long time. Well guys, those are the 10 best games I've played all year. It was a good batch. I was thrilled with them. As I was pulling them off the shelf, I got excited. I could feel like a palpable reaction to them because they were just so good and the memories flooded back. And that's what you want with a really good game. That's why we do this, right? That's why I collect all this crap behind me for the nostalgic reasons. And I'm already feeling nostalgia for these games, even though I just played them this year. There's not one in here I wouldn't love to go back and play again right now. So if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. I couldn't do it without you guys. I really love all the support. It's weird to say that at the beginning of this year, I had less than 500 subscribers, and now, like, how many more than that do I have? I don't even know. But I do know I just had the most successful week I've ever had on YouTube. And I'm getting, like, right now over 10,000 views a day, which blows my mind. So thank you guys for that. I would also like to take this as an opportunity to thank the channel members and Patreon supporters. You can see their names on the screen right now. If you'd like to get your name on the screen, leave a message in the video, get access to all the videos early, and even get access to member exclusive videos, you can do that for as little as 99 cents. By going down to the description below and joining the channel, or finding me on Patreon and doing the same thing. They're exactly the same. Every dollar goes right back to this channel. I couldn't do it without you guys. I really appreciate you and everything you do for me. I hope you know that. This is the last video of my first full year on YouTube. It's been a good one. I'm still really new to this. I hope you like the content. I'm still learning, but I appreciate everything you guys do for me. And I'll catch you next time.